Welcome, folks. Back here with another episode of the Scott Wyatt Podcast, and today we're talking about what you voted for, which is for me to talk about the Jackson Sessions, a release that I released back in, let's see here, I believe it was 2017, and it was all live acoustic recordings, just of some new songs, just trying to get some new stuff out there. It was recorded in Jackson, Tennessee, and tell you a little bit of background here as I bring it up on iTunes here, or Apple Music. My goodness, let's see, let's cheers for the good day here. All right, love that Four Sigmatic coffee. Okay, what I want to talk about real quick here is the cover design for this. It is well, if you look at it, I'll maybe put it up here on the screen for y'all. The cover itself, the little I guess you'd call it design, the item, the decoration that is on this was actually, at the time, my now wife, but fiance, Stephanie, she was living in Jackson at the time. And this decoration was a decoration that her mother got her as a gift and was hanging on her wall. And I was like, that would be a cool album cover. Boom, took a picture of it. And so that's what that is. So... And it's actually over there in the front room now, so it's pretty interesting. And one other thing before I get into the songs and talking about them, what I want to talk about real quick is something I did differently on this, and it's the only record I've ever done this on. I've thought about doing it in the future going forward. If you look at the tracks, like on Spotify or Apple Music, wherever you listen to music at, you'll see that at the end of each title, there's an equal sign, a minus sign, or a plus sign. And what that means and why I did that was to label the songs as to are like a plus is for it's a positive song, like uplifting or good. The minus sign is for like the more sad type songs, and the equal signs are kind of like right in the middle where if they're kind of indifferent, kind of neutral, I guess we'll say. So that's pretty interesting. I don't know why I did that, but it popped in my head, and yeah, it's a cool little idea, I guess. So anyways, I'm gonna run through these songs real quick and kind of talk about them one by one real quick. The first track is called Never Wanted to Grow Old. I actually wrote that in Jackson, and it was in the middle. I started it late at night, probably around midnight, I believe I wrote that one night. And but yeah, that's the lead off track there, and it's basically a song about what the hook line is, I never wanted to grow old until I met you. So it's just a love song, folks. So I hope you check it out and dig it if you haven't checked it out yet. And the next song is kind of following that same theme. It's called Bear My Last Name. It's about, going through a relationship, and hopefully somebody will want to take your last name, because it's not an easy thing to do. I couldn't imagine taking somebody else's last name would be, the society we're in, that does happen these days, where sometimes nobody changes their last name. But, yeah, it's just about that topic, so... Yeah, number 3, track 3 is called Not Scared. This is a song I wrote for my wife that I actually played at our wedding. So you can check out the video for that up on my Facebook page. It's on there. If you scroll back about a year ago, you can see the performance. I actually played it twice on our wedding day. Before we got married, me and my wife's brother snuck into the church where we were going to have the ceremony at. And he recorded me playing the song there before anybody got there up on the stage of the church. And then I played it again later at the actual reception while everybody was there. So it's pretty cool. Next song is called Got It Right. It's an older song that I wrote. Another thing I want to say about this album specifically is a lot of these songs I put on here were songs that I was probably never ever going to release. So I was like, let's just put them all in a bunch and throw them out there. So end up releasing them all. Got It Right is basically a song I wrote probably back in 2013, and it's one I've always kind of dug the story. It's about like starting out poor, basically, broke as a couple, and then making it through and getting it right. And it's a pretty neat little story if y'all check it out. The next one up is called More Like You, track number 5. This is probably the most upbeat song. If you're checking this album out for the first time, there's not a whole bunch of upbeat songs. It's more of a kind of a singer-songwriter type record here. But More Like You is a bluesy tune, and I wrote that one back in 2014 or 15, somewhere around that time frame. And it's got some hand claps in it, so you got to check that one out. Next one is called Three Chords and the Truth. And if you look back on my YouTube page, I believe I wrote this one back in 2012, maybe? Yeah, I would say 2012, 13, 14, in that range. Basically, it's about like just two people being together and not being able to work out because basically they're two different, that was lyrically, that was probably one of my favorite songs I've written at the time. Yeah. And this next one, track number 7, I cannot remember who it was. It's escaping me for the life of me. But anyways, I was out one night in Nashville with a couple people, and we were talking about kind of like what we've always wanted to be, growing up. And I was talking about how I always wanted to be a professional wrestler. Oops, sorry about that. Hence all the wrestling stuff. I'm a big wrestling fan. Also wearing the Bullet Club shirt, even though that they're kind of splitting up and doing their own thing with the AEW, but Bullet Club's still rolling in New Japan. But anyway, that's a side note. But yeah, I didn't pursue being a wrestler because I just wasn't big enough and too short. So music is my other passion, and that's what I do, and I love it. But this other guy, he wanted to, obviously he wanted to be a songwriter, and the other one was he wanted to run for like public office, I believe it was. He wanted to, eventually run for governor or something, or House of Representatives. And the other guy's like, oh, not in a million beers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a song right there. And so I turned it into a breakup song. So yeah, so that's a little story behind Not in a Million Beers. And next one is track number 8 is Put the Fire Out. And this is just kind of another reminisce type song where you kind of go back to the story of, falling for somebody, and yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It's called Put the Fire Out. On to track number 9. It's called Dance With Me, Annie. Now this is an interesting story. At least I think so. Like I said, my wife was living in Jackson, Tennessee at the time this recorded. She was working at a local nursing home. She does occupational therapy there, or did. And I would always go visit her and all the ladies there that worked there. And I met this guy there that was doing therapy. And he's like, hey, come back to my room. I want to show you a couple pictures of some cars that I built and worked on and different things. And I was like, okay. And so he showed me pictures on his phone. He used to work on boats. And he lived on a boat for many, many, many years. And he was living in California at the time, and then he met this girl that was in California visiting her friends. She was actually from Maine, yes. And she worked in the banking industry. And they struck up a romance. And so long story short, he really wanted to be with her and marry her, and have a life with her. And she had dreams of traveling, so she quit her job and moved on the boat with him. And then after about a year of doing that and traveling on different islands, she decided that she kind of wanted to go back to her old life and that it wasn't for her, which could be heartbreaking. I can only imagine how he felt. And so he let her go. And at the time that I was talking to him, which was years after the fact, he was telling me that I was the love of his life. And he talked about her, and he's like, we used to love to go out and dance, you know. We'd park on different islands and go into the city and dance. We would dance on the boat under the moonlight, which is one of their favorite things to do, he said. And at this point, he had some pretty extreme diagnosis and wasn't doing too well. And he said, you know, all I want to do is just dance with her one more time. And her name was Annie. And I literally went back to my wife's apartment at the time and wrote this song, you know, kind of from the story that he told me. It's called Dance With Me, Annie. And the next one is number 10, Roots. It's about picking up a hitchhiker. And yeah, you have to check out that story. It's a pretty fun one. But yeah, it's about picking up a hitchhiker, basically. And he's trying to get back to his hometown, basically, because he kind of regretted leaving. So it's pretty straight to the point there. And number 11 is On the Other Side. It's probably the saddest song I've ever written. I don't know how else to put it, but when I wrote this, it was back in 2012, 11. A lot of these are from around that time period. And I remember just feeling pretty bad at the time about a situation that was going on, and that's what kind of led to the song being written. And then, boom, we go on to the last track number 12, I Got Over You. It's pretty straightforward, and it talks about, you know, just collecting all the different things that and memories, whether the intangible things that attach you to a person, and just getting rid of them and getting over somebody. And that's kind of powerful in that sense. So yeah, that's what I got for the Jackson Sessions. This is a short episode. I'll be back next week with a brand new one as well. So thank y'all for subscribing here on YouTube, or if you're watching us on Facebook, for following along. We're on Instagram TV. So yeah, I appreciate you guys very much, and I hope you're doing very well wherever you are and whatever you're doing.